Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Welcome back, everybody. It's kind of Silicon Valley. This is our actual home inside this temple room. I say that because most of us, we welcome anyone who's here for the first time or visiting. We had a weekend of absorption during Janmashtami, and yesterday was the appearance day of Srila Prabhupada. So it feels like felt like separation, not being in the temple room. And it actually felt really good, just being absorbed in service over the last few days. So thank you for joining us online and for coming into the temple today. And this is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. If you made a wrong turn, came in the wrong building, you should stay anyway. The founder, Acharya, comes from a line of teachers that descend from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's mentioned in, of course, the Bhagavad Gita, which is him speaking. This is a recognized book by all the great teachers in the world, East and West, as being the most profound of all literatures. It's withstood the test of time, it never grows old, and is relevant to all different generations. And then, of course, there's the peerless Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a book that advocates for pure devotional service, which means serving God with no ulterior motive, or no motive at all, except for service, out of love. This is quite unusual in the world we live in because everyone works for a premium. If your boss or employer tells you that we'd like you to come in anyway, even though we're not going to pay you anymore, you might think twice, like really fast. But when it comes to serving Krishna, the devotees have a different kind of reward. They feel connected with him in love, and they're fully satisfied. So that's a different affair altogether. And Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, who's seated upon this ornate seat called the Vyasasana, the seat of Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva is a literary incarnation of Krishna who compiled all of the wisdom of the Vedic literatures and made sure that it was disseminated. He gave different parts of it. He divided it. In fact, Vyas means an editor. He took the knowledge which has always been available because it's eternal, but he put it into parcels, taught it to various disciples, and instructed them to disseminate it to human society in its various parts so that people could readily take advantage of it. Of course, we see remnants of this in India in the names like Trivedi. Are there any Chaturvedis? Chaturvedis. Yeah, one of the Vedas was more like voodoo, so it was left out. And that's been passed down over the ages, and of course Vyasadeva himself, the compiler of the Vedas, knowing that we'd be a little busy in this age, present age of Kali, gave us wisdom in a more palatable form. Palatable, that is, for the modern audience that's not that interested in studying Sanskrit and becoming aware of intricate details of philosophy. And Vyasadeva compiled the Vedanta Sutra, which is a series of codes that represent essential truths that come from the Vedas and the Upanishads. But then he gave a commentary on all of it called the Srimad Bhagavatam. The most recent incarnation of Krishna, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, where he's mentioned Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Karabhajana Muni, for example, talks about how an incarnation of the Lord will be available in Kali Yuga, will appear, and he'll be a Krishna, not blackish, he'll be golden, actually. And also he'll teach the primary practice for the age that we're in, which is chanting Hare Krishna. But he taught many other things as well, and those are available in a book called the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And in it he speaks about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu essentialized all the teachings, and he most specifically recommended that people study the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he called it the Amala Purana, or the Purana that doesn't have any fault whatsoever. It's the authority on everything spiritual. And it gives the most perfect definition of devotional service. Savai pumsam paro dharmo, haitukiya pratiyata, which means that the best that can be done for all of humanity is to give people this opportunity to do devotional service that's unmotivated and uninterrupted. And Srila Prabhupada came on the order of his guru across the ocean. He got on a cargo ship in Calcutta. There's a dock there that you can visit. It's actually still in the Ganges, entering into the ocean. It's a waterway, that's the Ganga. And he got on that boat and then sailed to America, and he brought with him the Srimad Bhagavatam. And his mission was to teach the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita to people in the West. It just so happened that he came at a time when people were searching for knowledge or a better way of life, 1965. And he landed in New York City. Soon afterwards came to, I'm abbreviating quite a bit of the details, came to San Francisco, then Montreal, then New Mexico, then London, and from there it spread all over the world, Australia, Africa, and to date there are thousands of temples just like this. And they all are, with some exceptions obviously, due to the human factor, standardized in their teachings and their mood. It's all following the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So you can feel safe here that you're in a place that is representing the original teachings of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as I mentioned, the most recently appeared incarnation of Krishna. And we also have, besides philosophy, standard practices that are not so hard to employ in one's life, but they make you better for it. Everyone becomes better for it. For instance, although this isn't absolutely required, but it's a good idea, and it's what's practiced in most of our temples, because the first service here starts at 4:30 a.m. Does that sound early for anybody? If it does, then it takes a little getting used to a different kind of lifestyle. But it's ancient wisdom, or there's an idiom that says, early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. Have you ever heard that? It's really true. And there are other healthy lifestyle choices here too. For instance, vegetarianism is something that's highly recommended. Don't eat anything that has a face or, cries when its children are taken away and so forth. You have a nonviolent lifestyle. You eat all the varieties of vegetables. You can have a rainbow diet and eat things that are healthy. It's a healthy lifestyle. And then, of course, there's very simple but profound spiritual practices recommended by our founder Acharya and by the ancient Vedas, and the most recent explanation of the Vedas called the Puranas, in the form of chanting mantra. Mantra, man means mind and tra means to deliver. We're carried by our mind to various destinations in this world and in the next, and therefore it behooves one, since we only get one mind, to take care of it. So the best care one can give for one's mind is to keep it clean. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended that you clean the mind through the mantra. Now that may sound a little funny, but we know about the subtleties of software, don't we? That if you write some bad code, you can overwrite it with better code. And the other one gradually goes away, doesn't it? Then you have the new code. So our mind is a collection of various codes that we've picked up from various places, and they may not be so good for us. So we can introduce another code, and that's the mantra. And the mantra we can program ourselves with every day. We can speak it, and it goes in the ear, and then it gets programmed in the heart and mind. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. It's a cleansing process. Out the old, in with the new, or more likely in with the new, out with the old. It overwrites. And the mind becomes clean, And when our mind and heart are clean, that is, we don't have any errant desires. A material desire means a desire that can't be fulfilled, can never be fulfilled. So it's good to keep in mind. However, spiritual desires do come true. And when we have a hankering for spiritual goals, then we become really productive and happy. Then we wake up and we want to jump out of bed and get started right away. We don't want to waste 1 second. Just like people who are greedy for making lots of money. Nothing wrong with making lots of money, by the way. But I'm saying just to keep it and covet it and so forth. Such people perform great austerities. There was a famous investor who used to live in Los Angeles, but because he was a trader, that is on the stock exchange, he had to wake up super early every day to trade in New York. And of course, he went to jail later, but for some kind of fraud. But in any case, he tried really hard every day and wrote a whole book about, he had to get up at 2 or 3 in the morning. So people do work hard for many things, but we could use the same energy that we have as human beings to have a spiritual goal and destination. And then we feel satisfied, and we have something really to offer the world, which is our own good qualities, an example of how to live not just a clean life, but a life of spiritual aspiration and achievement. So that's the basic tenets of the Krishna consciousness movement. And anyone can join here or can join from afar. We have an online community called Bhakti Community that anyone can get on and join a Zoom call, and you'll find there a sense of camaraderie and community, and you'll get spiritual learning there. And you can take up the practice in the privacy of your own home, especially chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, which is 3 words only. The only 3 words you have to learn, but then you have to know the order of them. So they go like this: Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And one of the ways to chant this mantra is you can count how many mantras you're doing and say it to yourself, like just loud enough so you can hear it. This gentleman here, very good-looking person in the middle row with the yellow shirt on. If you just hold up your bead bag, right there, he has a bead bag. Inside that, you don't have to pull them out, but there's 108 beads on a string. And he's counting how many mantras he chants throughout the day, and just hold up the little counter beads on the outside. That little string hanging off is not just for decoration, although it is very nice. It's actually to count how many, what we call rounds, that you would chant. So every time you go around the string and you've chanted 108 mantras, then you get to pull down one of those little beads. And so in this way, those who are practicing bhakti yoga keep track of how many mantras they're chanting every day. And this has a deep effect on the chanter. He or she starts to feel a sense of inner strength. This is one of the first symptoms of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. You notice that you can withdraw very easily, or much more easily, incrementally stronger, in avoiding temptations. And also one begins to have a vision of the world that's a little different. We start to see the world as an organized place. There's an intelligence behind it. And things look interesting and profound because we see that there's an arrangement behind everything, not just in the world, but also in our own lives, which is meant to take us somewhere. We'll start to develop, as one might say, a sense of purpose, much stronger sense of purpose. So that can be done, the chanting of Hare Krishna. And then, as you might have heard when you walked in, there was a song going on. We have a song and dance show here. You can sing, you can dance, you can play musical instruments to the mantra. And this is called Samkirtan. And anyone can do that in their homes. You don't need instruments. You can clap your hands. Even if you sing off tune, doesn't matter. because it's not about the perfection of the singing, but it's really about hearing the mantra and chanting with devotion. So that's a brief introduction to the history and the mood and the practices of the Krishna consciousness movement. So if you'd like to become part of it, please let us know, and we'll connect you to the Bhakti community. If you're online, you can stay there. We'll get you connected from that position. And if you live nearby and you'd like to come in, we have lots of people you can talk to, so you get to know who the people are and how you can be part of it. Does that sound okay? Yes. Does anybody have any questions or would like to join right now? Join? Okay, one joiner. Okay, so yes, another joiner in the back. So I'll just make a couple more points from the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, as I mentioned them earlier. And one great advantage one has in the practice of bhakti yoga is that we have Krishna on our side. Now, one might say, who is this Krishna? Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, what does that mean? It means everything emanates from an original source. And this is mentioned in the literature called the Vedanta Sutra. I also mentioned that earlier. And it says, Janmad yasya yataha. Everything comes from one source. It all emanates from one place. So then one might ask oneself logically, what kind of a place is that? Is it a black hole? Does something come from nothing? Actually, philosophically, that's absurd. It's like saying, I'd like to see a round triangle. That's just an absurdity. It's not actually a philosophical point or a valid inquiry that I'd like to see. Please show me a round triangle. It's just a misuse of the English language. And similarly, the idea that something comes from nothing is untenable, because something never comes from nothing. In fact, we find that the source of something must have at least what its emanation has. And therefore, the supreme, or the origin of everything, must be at least a person, because we're persons and we emanate from the supreme. So that supreme actually has an identity and a personality. And that's not such a far stretch. We tend to see everything in the world as personal, especially when we're children. When we grow up, we get jaded. What does jaded mean? I'll tell you what it means. It's not the stone, but a jade is an old horse that's run too many races and doesn't run anymore. It's like, here's a racehorse, but he ran so many times he can't even hobble around the track anymore. That's a jade. And so when we say we're jaded, we become discouraged by hearing so many philosophical points or opinions about God. Am I right? We'll confirm with our research department. Is that correct? Jade's a horse? Okay. It's that we may give up the search for the Supreme and say, nobody knows anything because there are so many differing opinions. However, there is a way to obtain knowledge. There is a process, of course, of ascertaining who we are and who is God, which comes down through a process of what's called disciplic succession. So it's based on the idea that if the infinite wants to reveal itself to the infinitesimal, then it certainly has a prerogative to do so. With my limited senses, I can't understand God. However, if God decides to reveal himself, then I may be in luck. And so the Vedic literatures point out that this way of obtaining knowledge by getting information that comes from the Supreme is the process of bhakti yoga. And in the epistemology of bhakti, there are various ways that the philosophers have ruled out understanding the Supreme, for instance, as I mentioned just a moment ago, through one's senses, because our senses are limited. If I close my eyes, I can't see beyond my eyelids, or I can't even see my eyelids. And I am limited in many ways with my senses, so the sensory input I get doesn't give me perfect information, although it may corroborate certain kinds of information. And then through deduction, for instance, if I see smoke lingering around the hills, I may say, well, where there's smoke, there's fire, and therefore there's a fire. However, the fire may have already gone out, and the smoke is still there. Or it may not be smoke at all, it might be fog, and I mistook it for smoke because I have imperfect senses. Therefore, I made a mistake. And so the system most recommended is hearing from the authoritative source. Now, one may say, well, how can I accept any authority? And you say, well, you don't have to, but then you have a problem, because then you have what's called infinite regress, which means that, let's just say someone tells me that water boils at 200 degrees, and I say, prove it, and then I bring a thermometer and I put it in the water, and at 200 degrees, you see the water start to boil. You say, no, I don't believe that either, because that might not be a real thermometer. So then I bring a thermometer testing kit, and I test the thermometer, and it is a real thermometer, and then they say, I don't believe that's a real thermometer testing kit. And in this way, as even Greek philosophers pointed out, especially, you can get into this infinite regress where you never get anywhere. And in a similar way, as Socrates once said, you have to make a stand somewhere. And that stand happens to be on accepting axiomatic truth. When you do geometry, you have to have a given to start solving a problem. So the axiomatic truth comes through the authoritative line of the Vedic teachings. They're taken as self-effulgent. Now, you can start testing the Vedas, and it's a good idea if you do, because once you've verified that there is a source of perfect knowledge, and then you accept that, then you're on a good track. In fact, everyone in every science ultimately has to be dogmatic to some degree, because we can't go back and test what every philosopher has ever done and said. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented the Vedas, he said this is self-effulgent, self-evident knowledge. And as Prabhupada points out, you might then want to test it, and you can to a certain degree until you figure out that it's accurate and axiomatic, and then you can follow it. And by doing that, then one's properly guided in one's life. So janmadhyasya yataha, everything comes from an original source. And then, as I mentioned earlier, these teachings, like the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, teach us about the most auspicious path in life. And for human beings, that means to come to the position of developing love for God, love for our source. Every living entity comes from the same source and therefore has the same quality as the source, but not the same quantity. Just like the emanation from a fire, the sparks, are similar in quality, but not in quantity. Now, there's a problem when the spiritual being comes in contact with the inferior energy called matter. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that there are different categories of energy, and we should be aware of their differences. So, as an example, the material world that we're in right now has categories of elements. And Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhumir apo analo vayu, kammano bhurir evacha, ahankara ityame binna prakritirashtara. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are the 8 gross and subtle elements of the material world. Then he says, aparem itastonyam prakritim vidime param, jiva bhutam mahabahoya yedam daryate jagat. Besides these, there's a different category of energy, and that's the conscious living being who's animating matter and manipulating it. We can manipulate matter because we are superior. But because matter also comes from the Supreme, it manipulates us right back again. As an example, human beings invented the iPhone, but then they become enslaved by it. So they use their superior intelligence to develop. I shouldn't use a brand name, should I? Sorry, what's his name? Steve Jobs I don't think we can worry about right now. What? Who? Sorry, Tim. I know he watches this show, so I apologize. You know, a smartphone, and not Apple. So once we develop some technology like that with our superior intelligence, then it comes and manipulates us right back again. And then you have TikTok into the wee hours of the night. So this is a conundrum. The little jiva is superior energy because of his smallness. He's easily overwhelmed by the material nature. This is something Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Daivahiye shagunamayi mama maya duratyaya mamevaye prapadyante mayametam. Yes, one can cross beyond this nature, even though it's very difficult to overcome because it's divine nature, interestingly. Even though it's material, it still comes from the Supreme. Because remember, janmadyasya yataha, everything comes from the Supreme Source, even matter. So devotional service is the process through which we can rise above the limitations of matter in which we are now ensconced and come to a position of real happiness. This is mentioned by Krishna in several places in the Bhagavad Gita, and I'll mention a couple. First of all, he says, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate saganan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate, which means that if you take up this practice even a little bit and you just are consistent with it, then gradually, you'll rise above the limitations of matter. And what does it feel like when one comes to this spiritual position, which is that one no longer identifies oneself with the material body? And Krishna describes this. He says, Brahma bhuta prasannatma nashotina kankshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. Here are the three symptoms that he mentions that when we taste spiritual happiness, even just a little, enough to wet our beaks. You know, a little bird, what are they called? Finches, my favorite bird. They have the tiniest little beak, and if they could just get one little drop of dew on their beak, that'll be a nice taste for them. Early in the morning, wet their beak. So when you just wet your beak with the devotional service, you just get a tiny little drop. Here's what you'll experience. Prasannatma. Prasannatma is a beautiful word. We all say it. Prasannatma. Prasanna means happy, and Atma means the soul, us. And so when you put the two words together, due to the way vowels combine in Sanskrit, it becomes prasannatma. Now everyone try it. Anatma, which means a happy soul. So if you want to be a happy soul, raise your hand. If you want to be a happy soul, clap your hands. If you want to be a happy soul. So prasannatma means you become a happy soul. And somebody might say, why are you so happy? And say, I have no idea, I just am happy. Because it's the nature of the soul, which is, the nature is described. Sat Chit Ananda. We're full naturally of ananda, or happiness. It's just our nature. I'm just like this. Why are you so happy? I'm just like this. I can't help it. So that's the nature of the soul. That's the first symptom that one gets from practicing any brand of spiritual life that actually works. So, prasannatma, nashotina kankshati. Now, everyone has some idea that I want something. If we're moving around in the world, we're alive, we have desires. And Krishna says that nahi kashichanamapi jatu tishtya karmakrit karyate hyavashak karma sarva prakriti jayargunai. Everyone is active, and we have, even when we're asleep, we have activity. We're going for something. Did you ever go to work when you were asleep? Did you get paid? See, what's the use of that, right? So we got all these activities going on. I'm chasing after my thing. I'm trying to catch a plane in my sleep. When I know I got to travel, or I'm in anxiety, I'm sleeping, I'm like, I got to catch a plane, and I can't find my ticket or my bags or something. So we're always active, even when we're sleeping. And so all that activity is the activity is eternal. So that activity, when in contact with material nature, means that I misdirect my desires towards wanting to possess matter. I want it to be mine. For instance, does anybody have a car? Can I have it? No. You know, when I'm on the street, I asked the guy in Wales, we were in Wales on the street, and I showed him a Bhagavad Gita, and I said, so if you like, it's an ancient tradition, you don't have to, and we don't need any money, but if you'd like to give something in return, it connects you. It's a sacrifice that you can do. It's called dakshina. And he said, I don't have money, I'm on break from working. Patted his pockets. This is the mudra to show that you don't have any money. And then, and then I saw he was smoking a cigarette. And I said, so why don't you give me those? I didn't need those either, but he did, so that would count as dakshina. And so he said, oh, I don't think so. All right, I'll give you one. He gave me one, and I was standing there with a cigarette in my hand. And then and then he said, oh, you might need the lighter, because I think he thought I was going to smoke it. And I said, no, I'll take the lighter, and here, you take back the cigarette. And then he started to figure out what was happening. I actually wanted the lighter, and I didn't really want the cigarette, although I would take it on his behalf as an offering and figure out what to do with it. And so then he panicked. And there's actually there's a video of this, so I have evidence. He panicked because he realized that that's how he lights his cigarettes, and he would have to find another lighter. And I said, wait a minute, think it over. I'm going to take this back to our church, and I'm going to use it to light candles to offer to God, and you're going to get spiritual benefit. And he was like, I said, no, you really should do this. No, all right, go ahead, take it. So the soul in the material world has this way of getting attached to crazy things. The craziest thing, cigarettes. Prabhupada used to point this out. Prabhupada, I'm referring to our founder, Acharya. He used to travel around the world and give very practical teachings. And at the time that he came to New York City, there was a very popular brand of cigarettes. I don't know if it's still popular. I don't keep track, but it was called Cool, and it's spelled with a K, which is really cool. And not only that, they are menthol cigarettes, so they're supposed to be cool when you smoke them. And Prabhupada looked at it and he said, cool, they're smoking fire in their lungs and they call it cool. He said, this is Maya. Maya means that which is illusion. And so we, as souls, come into the world and we see things and we say, oh, I'll try that, I'll try this, I'll touch that and that. And then it becomes a part of our life. And it's like goo, it gets all over us and we can't get it off. So when we have this, we get in a state called shochati, kankshati, hankering and lamenting for things that we don't need and really that don't do us any good. So what happens when you chant the mantra? Well, there's a little solvent that my wife Nirkula keeps in the cabinet. It's called, I think it's called Goo Be Gone or something like that. Goo Be Gone. So it's a solvent. When you get goo of any kind, call us. We know how to get rid of it. You put a little Goo Be Gone on it and on your skin somewhere, and it just dissolves it. It takes it off. So Nashotina Kankshati means you're goo-free. You get ungooed, degooed from these crazy desires for this, that. You name it, combinations, permutations of all kinds of sticky elements here in the material world that don't do us any good, don't actually bring us happy, they just get us more entangled. So this is the second feature of spiritual advancement, is You feel that you're becoming unencumbered by unnecessary desires. And that's very rare, because most people go to self-help programs or follow some strict process, but the desire is still there. And this is what Krishna says distinguishes regular self-help from Krishna consciousness, and that is a change of heart. Now, it's compared sometimes when you cut down weeds, a whole big field of weeds. You can even have goats come in. They're the best at cutting down weeds. In fact, people hire goats nowadays to come. They'll bring a whole herd. They'll eat the whole field in just a couple of hours. And then you see it's weed-free. But then the next rain comes, little green stuff comes up, and next thing you know, in a couple of weeks, it's all full of weeds again. They're there. The roots are there. And in a similar way, the roots get in the heart of the living being in this world. And no matter how many times we cut it down and say, that's it, I'll never do it again. Ever say that before? Yes. Yeah? Did you ever do it again? Yes. Yeah. So that means under different circumstances, I feel overwhelmed and I have to do it. With Krishna consciousness, a miracle happens, and the very roots of those desires become diminished and then abolished altogether. So one has a complete change of heart. And this is described by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Vishaya vinivartante nirahara sadehina rasavarjam rasopyasya paramdrishva nivartate. That you get a higher taste for Krishna consciousness, so that you're not interested in the lower taste anymore. You're actually satisfied with something better. And that's why you become Nashochiti Nakanshiti. And finally, Sarvishu Bhuteshu means that you lose your envy. Envy is a pinching force that when we see a good quality in somebody else, we may feel hateful, annoyed, disturbed, resentful. Why does that person have a good quality? I wish they would fall from their bicycle now. Outside, I'm going, and inside, I'm saying, fall, fall, fall. Because this is the nature of envy. I see the difference in other living beings, and I want them to fail so I'll look better. And this is the most horrific disease that can afflict a soul. And amazingly, Krishna consciousness cures us of that. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. We start to appreciate the commonality of all souls and that we're actually interconnected. And the good that happens to others is also happening for me as well. And there's this sense of universal camaraderie that develops from Krishna consciousness. That's why it's really good for the world, because this is the main problem that people have in the world, is squabbling over boundaries. They're like, this is mine. Like if a neighbor moves their fence when you're on vacation by 2 inches into your yard, you'll have a lawsuit, right? It's like, why'd you move your fence 2 inches in? It's like, well, you weren't home and we couldn't ask you, so we just took the liberty. And for the rest of their lives, they have a huge house and they're thinking, we lost 2 inches off our boundary wall. And those rats, there's this whole sense of, I own the material world. I'm trying to protect all my property, which I can't protect anyway because it doesn't belong to me. But it's solved with this universal solvent called Krishna consciousness, or the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So we get these 3 benefits. And everybody starts with some kind of desire in this world. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Chaturveda bhajante mam jana sukritino arjuna, arto jignasa artarti jnani cha bhartarshapha. There are 4 kinds of pious people who approach Krishna. And he says they're actually good souls. They come like everybody else does in this world with some sort of complexity in their lives. So one comes to Krishna with this thinking like, Krishna, I like you and everything like that, but I need money. So here's a rupee, here's $1. You please give me back 50,000. Or my kid's not going to get into, I don't know what you can get into nowadays for 50,000. Community college? I don't know. For 50,000?
A basic car.
A basic, no, I'm talking about colleges. Which college can you afford? 1 year? 1 year of a state university? Where? Oh, a private college. Well, that's pretty good. So, Krishna, I need money. Please help me. Then someone else will come and say, Krishna, I'm really suffering. I'm going to come see you, but take away my suffering. I don't want to be unhappy anymore. I'm really getting pounded by the material nature, and nobody knows my suffering like you do, Krishna, and only you can solve it. So please take it away. And the other one wants to be smart. And it's like, make me smart, Krishna. I want to know everything about the world. I want to be smarter than everybody else. And then there's somebody else who comes along in a very straightforward way and just says that you're God, I'm your servitor, just please let me engage. So Krishna names these 4 kinds of entities. Chaturvida vajantemam jana sukritino arjuna arto jignasa artarti jnani cha bharatarshapa. And he says, Tesham jnani nityayukta eka bhaktir vishishite priyohi jnani nyo yartam aham sacha mama priya. The best among them are those who are jnanis. And then he says, Udarak sarva evaite jnani tatmaiva mevatam asita sahiyukta mamam evam utamam gatin. All of them are great souls because they're approaching me. And the implication here is that wherever you start from is okay. It doesn't matter if you come to Krishna with all kinds of material desires, because just by taking up the process, you can gradually become purified. So here's a couple of recommendations that Krishna gives for those who are starting with material desires. He says that whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, whatever austerities you perform, do it for me. Just dedicate it to me. Because this will start the process. You're thinking, I'm doing this for Krishna. Even though I have to do it because I'm forced by my material desires, I'm going to do it for Krishna. And I'm going to think I'm offering this to Krishna. This is a sort of karma yoga. I'm working anyway, I'm earning money, so I'm dedicating it to God. So even though I have material desires, they get purified because you're approaching the Supreme Pure with them. And there's an example of someone in the Srimad Bhagavatam who wanted money, and that was Dhruva Maharaj. He was just determined to show up his father who insulted him by not letting him sit on his lap, along with his stepbrother. And he prayed to God, give me huge stacks of money and a big kingdom. But when he met him, when he came close, after following the process, he said, I don't want it anymore. So the Bhagavatam points out that, and so does the Bhagavad Gita, that if we take to devotional service from whatever position we're in now, we'll gradually become purified, and then we'll become happy. Om Tat Sat. Now we'll take a few reflections or questions, if you so desire. A reflection means anything you heard that you think should be passed on. Yes?
If you want to be goo-free, then take to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. It's very sticky. Gu means stickiness. And the material world's, it's a place where when we try to get well situated, we get more and more implicated. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna recommends very frequently, in fact, we might say the most prominent instruction he gives is to be tolerant. Tolerant of all the pushings of the desires that we have. Don't always give in to them. Say 20% fewer words than you think you have to say, and see how that works out for you. Usually better. Usually your life's 20% better. Then you can increase it to 50%. Actually, the admonition is not to stop speaking, but to speak more about Krishna and to refer to your point of reference is the Bhagavad Gita and other books of knowledge. It's important. But we can become entangled by our speech, the things we say the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person, and You can go to jail. There's all kinds of things that can happen to us here in the material world that implicate us more and more deeply in the material world. And this is like the goo. So Krishna says, tolerate a lot of the urges that come, and also be proactive. Use your voice for a good cause. Speak truthfully, beneficially. Avoid speech that offends, and be pleasing if you can. And also regularly, if you can do all those things at once, you're a master. And then also regularly recite the Bhagavad Gita. These things help. Okay, thank you. Goo be gone.
I was just remembering yesterday's drama, because whatever you said,
too.
it was so well portrayed, how unfortunate the soul is, and then how he learns because of the books. And I liked how they showed, that not, they have like every kind of books. Okay, you're not for this, we have this one. Then, variety. So I was just remembering, it's a full, whatever
Yesterday,
you said.
right here, we had, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's what, all that is.
I'll just tell those who weren't able to see it. It was really the best drama I've ever seen. I loved it. So, small stage, maximum import or purport. And they had a screen with a slit in it so you could walk through it like a doorway. And it was just gray with a little frame. And on the other side, there was 2 picture frames, and on it, it was labeled false ego. So an angel comes out, or a pure living entity, a pure soul, unfettered by the material world, no goo, and had wings, really nice wings. And that angelic person saw the doorway. Did somebody invite her to come in or something? Or just saw it and got curious? It just happened to be walking by, and it's like, wow. There's a doorway. Maybe I'll go in and check it out. So she tries to go in, but she can't get in with her wings. And then she takes her wings off. I felt that viscerally when she took her wings off. Like, oh, no, please don't. But she did. And then and it was very representative of a way in which a pure-hearted person can become influenced by misusing independence, or just misusing one's curiosity, not being careful. So she walked in, and then several visitors came and knocked at her door. There were noticeable characters. So who was the first one? Envy. Ouch. Okay, so envy came, and each person was a caricature of a certain quality. And they had a little sign with question marks. And then we'd have to guess from the music and their demeanor who they were, and they'd turn it over. There was envy, then anger with a stick, and then pride, and then lust. And so each one of them, somehow she let him in. I think anger just burst his way through the door. And they all came in and started living with this poor person now who was assailed by these 4 monstrous characters. And we saw that they started tying her up with these ribbons and lashing her with them and so forth. And we could identify with this idea that we ourselves open the door to many of these anomalies that we have in our life. We're purely spiritual, we want to be happy and unencumbered, but we get ourselves into all these things. And then finally, a devotee, ostensibly a Hare Krishna devotee. Yeah, it definitely was, because that always saw you hear Hare Krishna, different from the other music that went with the first 4 characters. And she came with books and offered them to the fallen soul, who at first rejected them, but the book distributor was very persistent, and she finally took a book and started reading it. And then she was able to overcome and actually kick out the various characters who left the house. And then she became restored to her original position. So it was very satisfying, because you could see in a demonstrable way how one might put oneself in a situation like that, and then how to get out of it. Okay, a couple more? Yes.
I like the point when you said about the Krishna consciousness removes the root cause, like tries instead of just the self-help program, they will give us help and take our money and everything. I was talking to a person actually in Bhakti community in one of the classes, and they said that they've spent so much money on their all their life as a couple, and they've spent so much money, read so many books on self-help. They've got help, but it was really not satisfying until they came up to Bhakti, and they see now that they can understand the root cause of all the problems, and they got the maturity and intelligence to deal with the situation. So I really could resonate with that.
Yeah, it's the example that's given in the Srimad Bhagavatam is of the field of weeds or grass being cut down and then coming back with the next rain. And we've all experienced that, how desires come and go. And this is described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his teachings called Bhoga Tyaga. So there's this sense that I want to enjoy, and then I get what I think will make me happy, and then it makes me actually sick. I get it, and it's like, God, I hate this. There's so many strings attached to this so-called enjoyment that I've gotten. So what's the next impulse? I want to give it all up. I don't want any of these things. And that's called tyag. So there's these two paths that are generally followed with the direction of a pendulum swing. So I want to enjoy, followed by I hate this, it's making me sick. I want to give it all up. But neither of these two is stable. The path that is stable is bhakti, which is called the path of dedication. So we see the whole world as paraphernalia to be used in loving service to Krishna. And when we have that relationship of serving Krishna with everything that we have, including our bodies and our minds and our words, then it's properly aligned, just as much as a little screw, if you find it on the ground somewhere, detached from the original machine that it was useful in. I don't think that was a good sentence. Should I do it again? You find a little screw that used to have a great utility by being part of a larger machine. It has become estranged from that original service that it had, and now it has no value. If you take it back to Lowe's, do we have Lowe's out here? I know they have them in Florida. Okay, you take it back to Lowe's and say, I'd like to return this screw. They'll say, sure, we'll take it for free and throw it away for you, but if the screw is in the machine, then it's very valuable because it's connected to its service. So when we have this connection to Krishna, our lives become very valuable. And when we're in that state, we're in the state of dedication. And then we feel naturally satisfied and actually joyful. Yeah, nice points. Okay, yes, please.
Hello.
Hare Krishna.
How to approach the imbibe of these thoughts like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam?
Pardon me?
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
Uh-huh.
The whole Vasudha is your Kutumbha. Vasudha like whole world, whole land. And this thought comes from, you said the tyag, okay? So once when we go with the tyag system, I need a lot of stuff, but I need the basic stuff. I said, I don't know what. Once in a life, we go to the stage where we define that this is the basic stuff that I need and I may survive on. And these are the other stuffs that if they are not in my life, I'm also happy. But I need something to survive with. Now, at this moment, we define that we can also help with others to get this stage. And at that moment, that the thought comes that what is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, like the whole universe can also get together and understand each other and help each other to grow and use minimal resources to contain themselves and be happy, like truly joyful. Because once we get the greed, there is no stop to that. It's infinite, going and going and going. Like what amount you want in your life, what job do you want in your life. But this thought of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam helps over there. So I can't figure it out that how does it actually work, how to imbibe these thoughts to reality.
Well, first of all, with the first part of your speech, if you were running for mayor or senator, we'd all vote for you.
run.
So well spoken, such nice
No,
ideas.
I'm not running for that.
I know, but we could just observe what we're able to use in service. In the Bhagavatam, it is said, "Kamasya nendriya pritir labo jivete yavasya jivasya tattva jignasya narto yasheha karmavi." So let's say you got to clear out your closet. Anybody ever have any extra things in your closet? Extra garments? So, of course, there's various practical things that professional organizers say, when's the last time you used it? When are you likely to use it? Maybe 10 years hence at a wedding or something like that. But the real standard is, do I need it for service? And how will I use it in service? And if it's not usable in service, it's a way to winnow out a lot of things you don't need. So Bhagavatam says, notice those things that you need for your service. Now, part of your service is to stay alive. It admits that. Bhagavatam says, Kamasya nendriya labo jiveta. Jivata means you have to stay alive. So if you have to live, everyone has a different quota for living. Like elephants, we once rented an elephant in India. My friend Tattva Darshan and I, we rented an elephant and a truck, and the elephant tamer, what are they called? Hodi? Mahots. So we had a mahout. We had an elephant, and we drove around in South India. We went to different villages, and we'd bring the elephant in, and everyone come running out. And then we'd set up a little place, and we'd show a Hare Krishna movie. We'd cook some khichdi, serve everybody out, and say, Hare Krishna. And so I noticed how much elephants eat, and it's a lot, because I was traveling with one for a week. And what's the guy called? Mahout. The Mahout. Mahat? Mahatma? The Mahout. The Mahatma. He'd stop along the way, and he'd go into the jungle, and he'd start hacking away branches and trees and everything, and throw them up in the truck, and like it was celery or something. And he ate all day long, the elephant. So he had a quota, and then an ant has a quota, 1 grain of sugar a day. That's enough, probably for a week, to run that little engine. So everyone has a different need for some sense gratification. So Bhagavatam says, take what you need to live. Be vibrant, be healthy. Go to Whole Foods if you have to. But, just do it so you can be healthy enough to keep doing your practice of devotional service. Keep inquiring. Stay vital. Don't do more and don't do less. So it really works out. This formula really does work practically in life. If you decide you need to buy a house, then you say, where am I going to buy the house? You'll have choices. Well, not many in the Bay Area, but you'll have some choice, and then decide where's the best place to live based on how I can do more service. And then you won't make a mistake, because if you're doing it with the right motive, that you're trying to engage in service, then everything will align properly. House, food, clothing, all these types of things that we tend to get bombarded with because it's such a consumer society. So you need this, so you need that. And as you were pointing out, we need very little. So it's a constant work also. We have to work on it. Because even if somebody's a sannyasi, sannyasis, people give them stuff all the time. So they have to constantly give it away. Otherwise, where are you going to put all that stuff? You can't have everything. Where would you put it? So, based on service, your decisions. And now we're going to have one last question online. Wow, Prema and Premi. Thank you for tuning in. Whoops. Oh.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna. Yeah. Nice to see you, all of you. Dandavats pranam.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah. That's make me remember the verse Anasaktasya Visayam Yataram Upayunyata Nirvanda Krishna Sambande Yuktam Vairagya Muchate, that when we accept things, but in the same way we are not attached with them and we use it in service, that's the real renunciation, like Tyaga, the way, in the proper way.
Did you hear that? The perfect verse he gave, that it's called Yukta Vairagya. Everything that you see that you can use in Krishna's service, then use it. And when it no longer has utility, then sell it on eBay. And it also means that if there are things that you can use in service, but you reject them based on a sense of like, I'm a tyagi, and you give them up, then this is called Valgu Vairagya. You're falsely renouncing. You're giving away something that could actually have been used. So utility is the principle. And so there are examples in the Srimad Bhagavatam of kings who had, well, king means wealthy and lots of possessions, but there were pure devotee kings. And they just used everything in Krishna's service. They didn't walk away from it. They actually used everything. And they set an example for others that here's how you use everything in Krishna's service. So it's not the amount that you have, it's the way that you're utilizing it. And it's helpful to get service. If you get some service then that's really well defined, then you'll have more reason to get more resources. For instance, if you don't have a good purpose for money and you get a lot of it, it generally degrades you. There have been many studies done about, or at least several that I've heard about people who win the lotto. And when they get lots of money, then their lives become ruined. I'm not just talking about a little discomfort, but totally obliterated their life becomes. And this is because they don't really have a purpose for it. It comes sort of inordinately, and people become envious, and they also don't know what to do with it. So when we know where to put everything, we're called sannyasis. Nyas means placing something in its right place, and sang means everything. And when you know how to put everything in its right place, then you're a sannyasi, because you know where to put everything. So it doesn't matter what external clothing you wear or what station in life you're in. If you know, hey, your play is getting great reviews, you know that? There she is back there. She did the play, Vaisesika. Thank you everyone who joined us online. And now we're going to have some Samkirtan. We'll chant together. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Gaur Premanande. Nita Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Nita Gaura Hari Bol. Hey everyone. Now we're going to have our official Hare Krishna dance party, which is the most fun you can have anywhere in the universe. Don't look anywhere else for fun. Here it is. We're going to put all these seats away in the back to clear up this beautiful wooden floor. It was made for Hare Krishna dance parties. We're going to roll up this rug. We'll all stand up. Ladies can be on the left, gentlemen on the right, and then we have free form for everyone to dance. Thank you very much for coming to the Hare Krishna program tonight. And just after the dance, we're going to feed everybody. So call your friends and get them on down here. Hare Krishna.
His Grace Vaisesika Maharaj ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Thank you very much. Chinatown, Krishna Maum. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Peshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyata Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस नित्यलीला प्रविष्ट परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद टेस्टलिंगेस अभयचरणारविंद भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रीला प्रभुपाद की ISKCON फाउंडर आचार्य श्रीला प्रभुपाद की श्री गुरु परंपरा की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य श्रीला ठाकुर हरिदास की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्यामकुंड राधाकुंड गिरि गोवर्धन धाम की ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की श्री नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्रम श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी की भक्ति देवी की तुलसी महारानी की गंगा मैया की यमुना मैया की समवेत भक्त वृंद की श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की वर्ल्ड वाइड ISKCON की ISKCON of Silicon Valley की गौर प्रेमानंदे all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya
भगवान की, अच्छा प्रहलाद महाराज की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंदी हरे बोल।
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much for coming to today's program and welcome to ISKCON of Silicon Valley. We'd first like to thank the Sunday Feast, the lecture that happened earlier today, and that was His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu, who talked a lot about Srila Prabhupada and the festival that took place yesterday, which was Srila Prabhupada's appearance day, or founder Acharya, who's sitting right back there. So with that, please give a huge round of applause for our speaker. We'd also like to thank His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu for leading us through with the Darshan Arti. And we'd like to thank Prisha over here, who sang the Narshinga prayers. And is there anyone coming for the first time today? Please raise your hand. Wow, there's so many of you. It's so nice to have all of you. Please reach out to Sachindra Prabhu or Sri Gopal Prabhu, who's right here, if you have any questions, and you can see them after as well if you need assistance with anything. Thank you so much for coming. We have some upcoming events. Our monthly Harinam is going to be taking place on Friday, the upcoming Friday, and it'll be on Emerson and University Avenue in Palo Alto, and it'll be happening exactly at 6:59 p.m. sharp. We hope to see you all there. And today's sponsors, as you know, our festival, our Sunday feast and festivals cannot happen without sponsors. So we'd like to thank our 3 sponsors for today. The first being Anusha Mataji, who's sponsoring in the memory of her Nani, her maternal grandmother, who left her body on July 29th. Are you here? She was here? All right. Thank you so much. And you can just give a round of applause. We'd also like to thank Mohan Rao Katha Prabhu, who's sponsoring on the occasion of his wife, Chamundeshwari Mataji's birthday. Thank you so much. Yeah. And we also have Sukada Gauranga Prabhu and Mataji, Premakishwari Mataji, who are sponsoring on the occasion of Adyan's birthday. Adyan, come on. So I'll let Sri Gopal Prabhu, who's now the expert in asking birthday questions, ask Adyan a couple of birthday questions.
Adyan, so how old are you?
I'm 12.
You are 12. So what do you like to do in the temple?
I like to listen to Kirtan and eat prasadam.
Eat prasadam. Wow. And what did you do for the Janmashtami volunteering service? Did you have any service that you did?
Yeah, I did the shoe rack and like traffic control.
Traffic control. Wow, Haribol, give him a big round of applause. Adyan is very sincere and he likes to do a lot of service. And we all wish you all the best, Adyan, for your all the spiritual progress. And thank you a lot for your all the services you do here at Silicon Valley, ISKCON of Silicon Valley.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We will give you the Mahaprasad. Okay, I'll need to talk to Mataji and I'll get you Mahaprasad. Okay? Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Adyan. And for all the other sponsors as well, I think there are Mahasweets. You can meet Sri Gopal Prabhu afterwards. With that, we'll have the cooks. Hare Krishna. Today's prasadam was cooked by Shama Bhakta Prabhu, Sri Ram Prabhu, Hitesh Prabhu, Santosh Prabhu, Shubham Prabhu, Arun Prabhu, and Jayesh Prabhu. Thank you. And with that, we'll go right into prasadam prayers by Gita Priya. Sharira Vidyaja Jorindiya Tahe We'd also like to thank our broadcasting team, Charanamai Prabhu in the booth back there, and the team that bring you all of the live events on Zoom and also broadcast. Thank you so much. Please come take prasadam outside. Haribol.